You open your toolbox, you reach for the thing that's supposed to make the job easier, and it fails you mid-turn. Again, that's not bad luck. That's 5 tools sitting in almost every American garage that were never built to actually work. Today I'm exposing every one of them. Then I'm showing you 2 tools on the complete opposite end, the kind serious mechanics save up thousands of dollars for. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to throw in the scrap bin and exactly what's worth saving up for. Let's start with the worst offenders. Stick around because the gap between what you paid and what these are actually worth only gets wider as we go. Ultra cheap multi-bit ratcheting screwdrivers. That fat plastic handle packed with a dozen bits with a satisfying ratchet click. It sells itself in the store. 6 tools in one for $10 to $15. It feels like real value. It is not. The moment you own one, its worth starts dropping. The internal storage cap pops open at the first tilt. Half the bits you paid for end up lost under the workbench within a month. You're already down to owning a fraction of what you bought. Then, the ratchet mechanism itself, the whole reason you paid extra over a basic screwdriver, strips out the first time it meets a stuck screw. What's left in your hand at that point isn't worth the $12 you spent. It's worth what a broken plastic handle is worth, nothing. A plain single-blade screwdriver costs less, and it never loses a cent of what it does for you. You didn't buy a bargain. You bought a tool whose value was already gone before you needed it. Right out of the gate, that's a 0. Next up, it gets worse than 0. Flexible extension shafts for drills and screwdrivers. The pitch is clever. A coiled steel or rubber wand that lets you drive screws around corners into tight recesses at angles a normal bit could never reach. At $10 to $15, it looks like it's solving a real problem for almost nothing. Here's what it's actually worth the second real torque hits it. The shaft doesn't transmit force in a straight line the way a solid bit does. It twists. Put any resistance behind it, and that coil winds up on itself like a rubber band, binding solid or whipping loose and snapping around, sometimes hard enough to crack a knuckle or send a bit flying. So the tool you bought to reach an awkward angle either seizes up and does nothing, or turns into something you're actively trying to get away from. You paid for access to tight spaces. What you got was a tool that's more dangerous than the tight space ever was. A solid, low-profile right-angle drill attachment costs a bit more and actually transmits torque instead of absorbing it into a knot. That one costs you a scare and a bit you'll never trust again. The next one costs you an afternoon and a dead battery. $20 cordless power screwdrivers. It's sold as the upgrade every drawer needs. No cord, no hand strain, real motorized power for around $20. It sounds like a bargain on a real cordless tool. Here's what that $20 actually bought. Most of these run on a tiny 3.6 to 4 volt motor. Barely enough torque to sink a loose machine screw into pre-drilled plastic. The instant you hit anything with real resistance, a slightly stubborn screw, painted wood, a stripped-in fastener, the motor just stalls out and sits there whining. Then you plug it in to charge, and it's dead for hours before it can fail you again. You didn't buy a power tool. You bought a toy that occasionally spins, with a battery that's asleep more than it's awake. A quality ratcheting hand screwdriver beats it on torque every time for less money, with 0 charge time. Or skip the gimmick entirely and step up to a true 12-volt impact driver, which will still be running years after this one's in a landfill. That one costs you a wasted afternoon and a dead battery. The next one costs you real money, and it costs your hands to get there. Strap wrenches for oil filters. The strap wrench is priced like a convenience. $12 to $20 to skip buying a dedicated filter tool. It looks like the cheaper way to handle one job. But a tool only holds its value if it actually does the job. And this one usually doesn't. Oil filters are slick and over-tightened. A rubber or nylon strap has almost no grip on that surface. It flexes and slides instead of turning. So you're not just out the $15 for a tool that didn't work. You're out the extra time spent fighting it. And in a cramped, oily engine bay, you're risking skinned knuckles, chasing a grip the strap never gave you. A tool that costs you a trip for a bandage on top of failing the actual job isn't worth the shelf price. It's a net loss. A fixed-size oil filter end cap socket costs about the same. It works every time, and it never asks you to pay in blood on top of dollars. Failing the job costs you money and skin. The last tool on this list takes all of it at once. Your money, your skin, and the job itself. Cheap self-adjusting, automatic wire strippers. This is the one that sounds like a genuine time saver. Squeeze once, it auto-gauges the wire and strips it clean. No guessing which notch to use. At $10 to $18, it looks like the smart upgrade over a basic manual stripper. Here's why this one's worth is the worst on the entire list, and why you might not find out for weeks. The spring-loaded jaws aren't actually reading the wire. They're guessing, and on anything but perfect, fresh wire they guess wrong constantly. On tougher automotive insulation or thin-gauge electronics, they either crush the wire flat, deforming the copper underneath where you can't see it, or they bite too deep and slice straight through several of the strands inside. A connection made on a wire like that doesn't fail today. It fails weeks later, as a flickering light, a sensor that reads wrong, or worse, a hot spot in a bundle of wiring that's now your ignition risk instead of your electrical connection. You didn't pay $15 for a faster strip. You paid $15 for a problem that hides inside your dash until it isn't hiding anymore. Standard manual multi-notch strippers cost less and never guess. Or step up to a real pistol grip strip master from Klein or Knipex and get a clean cut on the insulation without ever touching a strand of copper underneath. So add it all up, 5 tools that together cost you a scare, a dead battery, real money, money and skin, and finally damage you don't even see happen until it's already cost you something bigger. None of them were ever worth what you paid. Most of them ended up costing you more than if you'd never bought them at all. Now here's the part of this video that flips the entire idea of worth on its head, because the next 2 items aren't things you need to go buy. They're things most people already own, have owned for years, and have never once stopped to ask what they're actually worth. One of them might be sitting against your wall right now, and you've been walking past thousands of dollars without knowing it. That rolling tool cabinet in the corner. You know the one. It's been in the same spot in the garage for years, half the drawers stiff. A coffee ring on top, completely invisible at this point, because you stopped seeing it as anything other than furniture. If it's a heavy-duty industrial cabinet from a name like Snap-on, Matco, or Milwaukee, it is not furniture. It's an asset you've been standing next to without knowing it. That cabinet retails anywhere from $2,000 up to $10,000 or more. It's heavy-gauge steel, ball-bearing drawer slides, rated to hold hundreds of pounds each without sagging. Sometimes a built-in power module wired into the whole unit. It holds its value better than most cars sitting in the driveway next to it. Most owners bought it, filled it with sockets, and never thought about it again. Go check the model plate tonight. You might be standing 3 feet for more money than you think. The torque wrench you think is just for lug nuts. This one's easy to miss. It looks like nothing special. A drawer tool you grab once a year to snug up wheels after a tire rotation, then forget exists. Most people have owned one for a decade and have no idea what it's actually been worth that whole time. A real, calibrated, multi-angle digital torque wrench has been standing between you and a 5-figure disaster every single time you've used it, whether you realized it or not. And if you've got the full setup, a professional-grade wrench paired with its own calibration equipment, the kind serious techs use to verify it's still reading true, you're looking at $1,500 to $5,000 sitting in that drawer. Not the $150 hardware store version most people picture. Over-tighten a fastener on an engine or a delicate aluminum component, and you can warp a rotor, snap a stud, or crack a housing. Under-tighten it, and the part works loose under load, sometimes at highway speed. That's not a lug nut accessory sitting in your drawer. That's insurance you already paid for and forgot you owned. Here's the number that should change how you think about it. One missed torque spec on an engine job can cost thousands in damage. A warped head, a spun bearing, a bolt snapped off somewhere you can't reach. The tool that's been preventing that, quietly, for years, cost you a few $100s once and never asked for anything again. So here's the rule that separates the two lists you just saw. The worthless tools were never worth what you paid the moment you left the store. The value only goes down from there, through lost hardware, ruined fasteners, and repair bills that dwarf the sticker price. The tools worth thousands do the opposite. Their worth was never really about the price tag either. It's about what they've quietly protected or organized for you the entire time. Value that just kept compounding while you weren't looking. Go look at what's against your wall right now. If it's any of the first 5, you've already paid more for it than it was ever worth. And if that cabinet or that torque wrench has been sitting there ignored, it might be the most valuable thing in the room. If this saved you from buying the wrong tool, subscribe. The next breakdown covers the 5 power tools that die within a year, and the 2 that outlast their owners.